In Mark 2 and Luke 5, Jesus meets a tax collector by the name of Levi and says, "Follow me." In Matthew 9, the tax collector's name is Matthew. Both Levi and Matthew not only follow Jesus, but also throw him a banquet with a bunch of tax collectors and other colorful sinners. Some Pharisees asked Jesus' disciples why Jesus kept such bad company. And when Jesus heard about it, according to Mark and Luke, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." In Matthew, he also adds, "But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice," between those sentences. The sentence Matthew adds is a reference to Hosea 6, a chapter devoted to verbally eviscerating Israel for being such terrible sinners, as the Old Testament prophets regularly did. The complete verse is, "For I desire mercy, not sacrifice, and acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings." The Mirror Bible translates Jesus' response in Luke as, "I didn't come to redefine the self-righteous, but those who realized they couldn't get it right by themselves. I came to awaken sinners to recognize their authentic identity mirrored in a complete, realigned mind." The Mirror Bible says self-righteous, and there are other versions that use the phrase "those who think they are righteous." But Jesus does acknowledge that righteousness is a thing, and some people have it, because you can't really have sinners if you don't have righteous folk to compare them to. If no one were righteous, there would be no one to distinguish the sinners. To me, this is Jesus identifying his mission to minister to a particular group of people, and that not everyone needed his healing from their emotional, mental, physical, or spiritual traumas. Granted, Jesus could have been just ripping the Pharisees for thinking their religiosity was righteous, when in fact, judgmental stances and arrogance were quite sinful, just as we see in many religious folk today. But Jesus didn't come for them because they didn't know they needed to be healed. And God can only do so much with an unwilling participant. Every person Jesus healed, and every person whose life has been somehow changed in the name of Jesus since, wanted to be healed. They wanted to be released from whatever traumas they had endured in the past that caused them to develop unhealthy habits in thought, word, and deed. And they wanted to move in a new direction. Religious folk don't often want to be moved in a new direction. They want to follow their traditions and cling to their limited understanding of God due to their proclivity to adhere to dogmas and doctrines that have been developed as part of their culture. Their normalcy and ritual and repetition works for them. But as Jesus said, Hosea said, God doesn't want sacrifices and burnt offerings, but mercy and acknowledgement of God. Of course, that idea that righteous people exist in the world contradicts the tenets of Christianity inspired by a verse in Paul's letter to the church in Rome, and followed up on the idea mentioned in Psalms and Ecclesiastes that no one is righteous. No, not one. For those committed to complete Judeo-Christian theology, that's part of the package. Christians believe that Jesus was the only truly righteous person to ever exist, and Judaism seems to just have accepted the flaw and moved on. However, Psalm 92 says, "The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree." And I know there's more than one palm tree.